Welcome to The Planner's Perspective with Jessie Kara. This is the podcast for wedding planners and couples navigating South Asian weddings and everything that comes with them. Culture, family dynamics, money, design, expectations, and the real conversations no one prepares you for. I'm Jessie Kara, a South Asian wedding planner and educator trusted by couples and families when things get complicated. Here we go beyond timelines and Pinterest boards and talk about what actually happens behind the scenes. If you're a planner stepping into South Asian weddings or a couple who wants to understand the process more deeply, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. If you've ever found yourself thinking, why is this so complicated? Pause for a second. Because you're not just planning a wedding, you're navigating people, expectations, history, and a lot of emotion, like a lot of emotion. And here's the part no one really prepares you for. South Asian weddings don't get simpler as you go. They get heavier, they get louder, and they get harder. Decisions start carrying more weight. More people start getting involved, and things that felt straightforward in the beginning suddenly start feeling heavy and loaded. That doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. By the end of this episode, I want you to understand what's actually happening beneath the surface, so you can move through planning with more clarity, more compassion, and a lot less self-blame. Here's the thing people don't usually say out loud. South Asian weddings get harder because of family expectations and the number of hidden decision makers involved. Not the loud ones, the quiet ones. The ones who say they're fine. The ones who say do whatever you want. The ones who don't technically decide anything, but somehow influence everything. A lot of this pressure is wrapped in language that sounds harmless. Tradition, respect, sacrifice. This is just how we've always done it. And very often, guilt is framed as culture. Mothers, I find, play a huge role in this. Not all, but many. Older siblings or their spouses too. There's a lot of holding on to narratives how things were when they got married, or what they were allowed to do, what they weren't allowed to do, what they had to give up. So when a new bride comes into the family and suddenly she's allowed to wear a color or a style that somebody else wasn't, that stings. When gold was gifted one way years ago to the first daughter-in-law, but financial situations or gold prices have changed when it's time for the next daughter-in-law to enter the family, expectations clash, feelings are hurt, comparison starts. Opinions on what the groom's sister is wearing or what she's not wearing or shouldn't wear. It's rarely about the outfit. You just hear things like, that's what we're supposed to do. That's how it's always been done. And sometimes that's true. And sometimes it's just fear of change. Times are changing though. And in some situations, we need to adapt. This is usually the first surprise. At the beginning, everything feels exciting. You're newly engaged. You're talking about like what you want to wear to your wedding or what you want your wedding to feel like. You're imagining something meaningful, personal, maybe even intimate until the parents get the guest list. I've seen so many couples start there and then the planning begins. In one recent situation, the groom's parents were funding the wedding, and with that support came a different set of expectations. More events, more people, longer days, more photo and video coverage. What started as one celebration expanded into many. And slowly, the wedding stopped feeling intimate in the way the bride had imagined. Not because anyone was trying to take something away, because when money enters the picture, so do obligations. This is where couples often feel conflicted, grateful and disappointed at the same time. If you're feeling that tension, it doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means the shape of the wedding changed. And you're allowed to notice that. This is one of the heaviest truths. Budgets in South Asian weddings are rarely just numbers. They're about pride, legacy, comparison, perception, and dare I say power. I've seen families take out second mortgages to fund weddings, sometimes to give their children what they believe is their dream, and sometimes to avoid looking worse off than a relative. Sometimes because this is just what's expected. Many couples didn't grow up with these same pressures, but their parents did. And when you understand that, budget conversations don't necessarily get easier, but they do get clearer because money carries meaning. And once you see that, you stop trying to make budgets purely logical and start approaching them with more awareness and care. Sometimes this isn't even about money. In many South Asian families, there's this level of enmeshment that exists. And I want to be careful with that word because sometimes it's not unhealthy. Sometimes it's just simply expectation, especially when it comes to sons. There can be an unspoken understanding that decisions aren't fully individual, that choices are made with parents, family, and community in mind. And this pressure doesn't always show up as control. Often it shows up as responsibility to honor parents, to respect family dynamics, to do things the right way. So when decisions feel slow or unclear, or like they keep changing, it's often because someone is trying to hold multiple roles at once. If this feels familiar, you're not failing at communication. You're navigating layered decision making. And that takes time. This part matters. Conflicts that show up late in planning don't come out of nowhere. They show up because they're the straw that breaks the camel's back. Things are happening quickly. People are feeling unseen. Opinions feel ignored. There's a quiet fear of being replaced or left behind. I've seen situations where everything was booked, approved, and ready to go, and then suddenly there's an issue. Not because the decision was wrong, but because someone finally reached their emotional limit. Often, it's grief, loss, unhealed wounds, a feeling that a son is being taken away, a feeling that traditions are disappearing, a feeling of no longer having a place. And I really don't think most of this is vindictive, though I have seen it that way at times, plenty of times over the years. But more often, it's pain looking for a voice. If you're listening to this as a bride and the planning process feels heavy, it's because weddings were never just about the bride and groom. Like, honestly, if we are completely honest, weddings in India are definitely not about the bride and groom. The weddings in Western countries are now about the bride and groom, and more so the bride, not even the groom. We have to navigate those changes because traditionally for South Asian weddings, it was about the families united and relatives being acknowledged, hierarchy, who needs to be tended to. If you're like South Asian, the fufur that had to be represented, a fufur is your dad's sister's husband because they, had this place in the hierarchy. And here we are, and you are planning a wedding that isn't like the wedding that your parents had. And it's not like the mainstream weddings that you're seeing on the TV or in movies. It's a lot like being a first generation kid, trying to fit in at school and then going home and speaking another language, showing up differently in different places or spaces. Being true to yourself and your relationship while navigating expectations is not easy. So I want you to show yourself some grace, to step into these decisions, because some brides truly don't care what anyone thinks, and all the power to you. But culturally, finding a middle ground often matters for long-term family harmony. And that doesn't mean laying down the law and saying it is what it is. It means listening as a form of respect and then educating on why you're doing things the way you are. And if these conversations are with your in-laws, this is where your partner comes in. You should not be justifying budgets. You should not be answering for decisions that weren't yours alone. If you made that decision together, talk to your own parents about it. And you should not be bypassed or expected to carry the emotional load. If you're the groom and you're listening right now, one of the hardest but most important roles you play in wedding planning is navigating expectations from your partner and your family. And I'm going to be honest with you. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If you think this is hard, the conversations aren't going to get easier after the wedding. I'm going to need you to participate, be on calls, listen, ask questions. So when things come up, your partner isn't positioned as the bad guy. I understand how hard it can be to tell your parents what you want or think, especially if you've been raised believing your role is to support, provide, and comply. But you've decided to form a family of your own now, and leadership matters here. Leading does not mean dictatorship. It means seeing the full picture and making informed decisions for the longevity of your family, the one you chose to create, the one you're creating, not just the one you're born into. So when conflict shows up late in the planning, instead of asking, what did we do wrong? I want you to ask something different. Did we have the conversations we needed to have? Did we keep people informed in the ways that felt respectful? Did we try to make people feel seen and heard? And if you did all of that, then it's a communication issue and not a failure. Each partner should speak to their own families. That's just something I believe in. That's how blame games are avoided. And I want to be clear, this isn't just about the groom's family. I know I've used groom's families a lot in examples. Bride's family have dynamics like this as well. Just recently, I have, in the past little while, through TikTok and through my own clients, I've just been noticing this a lot. So we're using it as examples because bride's family do have these dynamics too. It's what I've encountered, okay? So I want you to stop telling yourself that everything is doomed. Wedding planning is emotional, period. It brings things to the surface. So with clear communication, boundaries, and systems, almost everything is figure outable. Try to step back, see what things for what they are. You're not failing. You're not a failure. But just look at it as a sign that you're navigating something layered and complex. If planning feels heavy, it's not because you're doing it wrong. You're just carrying more than what most people realize. And awareness alone can be a form of relief. So, hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one. If today's episode helped things click or gave you a new perspective, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. This podcast exists to support planners in doing their best work and to help couples feel informed, confident, and prepared as they navigate their very own South Asian wedding. If there's something specific you want me to talk about, an episode idea you'd love to hear, a planning story you want to share, or a question you're sitting with, there's a link in the show notes where you can send it all in. I promise I will read every submission, and many of them will shape future episodes. You can connect with me at www.jessiekara.com or on Instagram at jessiekara. If you're ready to navigate South Asian weddings with intention and confidence, I'll see you there. And if this podcast is supporting you in any way, I would truly appreciate you taking a moment to leave a 5-star review. It helps more planners and couples find these conversations and keep the space growing. Until next time, trust your perspective and plan with clarity.